Well, welcome. We have standing room only or sitting room only for the Prime Minister. Anyway, thank you all. We're really delighted you could be here. And Mr. Prime Minister, tere tulemast Indiana Uligoli. Which I think means welcome to Indiana University. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Ambassador, members of the Estonian delegation, on behalf of our university and the School of Global and International Studies, we are really thrilled and honored to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. This visit could not have happened without the work of some of my dear colleagues, and I'd like to acknowledge them. They come from our Department of Central Eurasian Studies, which we call SGIS around here, and in particular Professor Toivo Aron and Department Chair and Distinguished Professor Jamshid Chaksi. Thank you both, and let's also give them a round of applause. At IU, and especially in our school, Estonia crosses our mind frequently. That's the kind of thing you say to visiting dignitaries when they come, but as you can see by the audience here, it's true. We're the only American university that teaches 3 levels of Estonian language, and this is part of our history. It's in our DNA. SGIS has been offering instruction in Estonian since 1952. Thanks to the late linguist Professor Alo Ron, who came here on a Guggenheim Fellowship and taught here until 1975, and his legacy lives on at SGIS in the Alo Ron Prize, which rewards student excellence in Estonian and Finnish studies, and also in the teaching and scholarship of his son, Professor Toivo Ron. Estonian language instruction at SGIS these days is also in the very capable hands of another of my colleagues. So I'd like to acknowledge PB Kai Kivik. PB, where are you? And we really are grateful for the support of the Estonian government and the Estonian Institute, which helps to support our Estonian language programs. Let me say a few words about our guest of honor and then ask him to give some remarks. He has his own personal ties to Indiana. His cousin is Professor Ain Haas, a Professor Emeritus of Sociology at IUPUI and the chairman of the Indianapolis Estonian Society. Professor Haas, are you here? Yes. Thank you very much for coming. Prime Minister kicked off a meteoric rise within Estonian politics with his election in 2002 to the office of Economic Advisor to the Tallinn City Office. The next year, he became the Deputy Mayor of Tallinn, and in 2005, at the age of 27, the city's mayor. The leader of the Estonian Centre Party, the Prime Minister served as Vice President of the 11th, 12th, and 13th Estonian parliaments before being elected Prime Minister of the Republic of Estonia in November 2016. And this biographical note will really impress you since we're in Indiana. Prime Minister Ratas is not only a force to be reckoned with in the political arena, but also on the basketball court. He's so enthusiastic about the sport that among his many other accomplishments and positions of leadership, he was, from 2012 to 2016, president of the Estonian Basketball Association. So please come back for a Hoosiers game. Our auditorium, Simon Scott Assembly Hall, is the Carnegie Hall of basketball. We also share another critical link, and that's our mutual commitment to IT development and its twin cybersecurity. We're proud at this school to be a tech innovator. Our School of Informatics, and our dean is here, Raj Acharya, was the first of its kind when it was founded in 2000, and we've been named the most wired public university in the United States. And of course, Estonia is considered the Silicon Valley of Europe, where Silicon Valley is considered the Estonia of the United States. In Estonia, it's not uncommon for children to learn to program computers at very young ages. The country is a hub for technology startups, of course Skype being just one of them, and about half of those who still work for Skype after its acquisition by Microsoft are based in Estonia. And as the Prime Minister was telling us in some informal comments earlier today, people in Estonia really put the E in e-government. Almost all government services can be accessed digitally. The nation has been ranked second in the world for ensuring internet freedom. You can even register as a resident, if I understand correctly, online in Estonia. We're, of course, inspired by your country's history, and we're pleased to be part of the preparations for your centennial. We are admiring of the country's strong tradition of nonviolence. We remember that Estonia was one of the first countries to reestablish its sovereignty following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And Estonia, and I can say this as someone who served in Poland, is really one of the most successful, if not the most successful, of the post-Soviet societies to reestablish democracy and reaffirm their own independence. Estonia's commitment to democracy is strong and solid. The country ranks high with regard to freedom of the press, of assembly, for political organization. It's one of the most transparent of post-communist transitional states, according to Transparency International. And of course, since 2004, Estonia has been an ally of the United States in NATO, a member of the European Union. And I mentioned earlier, or if I didn't, I should have, that in addition to his role as Prime Minister, Prime Minister Ratas is also in the presidency of the rotating chair of presidents in the EU now, at a very important time in the EU's history as Brexit negotiations are going forward. So, without any further delay, I want to tell the Prime Minister again how much we appreciate his country's close relationship with the United States, its participation as a strong member of NATO and as a strong member of the international community. And so please, I present to you Prime Minister Jüri Ratas.
Dear professors, students, ladies and gentlemen, so many nice words, it's hard to add something. Thank you for the instruction. And your colleagues said to me that maybe here will be about 10 or 15 persons, then now it's a little bit more. I'm very appreciative about that, really. But ladies and gentlemen, since I know you all have been studying, or your colleagues have been studying Estonian language already for over 60 years here at Indiana University, Bloomington. And I hope that I will speak in Estonia next 30 minutes. Tere õhtust! But of course, it is a great honor and privilege to me to be here in the United States, in the state of Indiana at your university in Bloomington. If I ask myself loud, why am I here today, then of course mainly because Estonia and the United States have good and supporting relations. We are friends and allies. But the true meaning of America is a lot bigger to many Estonians, including myself. There are many Estonians living in your great and beautiful country, and also here in the state of Indiana. We have a lot of relatives and friends here whose mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers, great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers came here in the 1940s and 1950s. They traveled to America to live in a friendly and peaceful environment in the democratic world. Nevertheless, they always kept a strong tie to all who stay in Estonia and carried Estonia in their hearts. I want to thank you for accepting my fellow Estonians here so warmly and for providing them a safe homeland. A lot of my fellow Estonians have found work here in entrepreneurship, in real estate, in the US military, in landscape architecture, as pet doctors, in movie and commercial business, also in the field of science. All these working fields are also represented among my relatives who mainly live in Indianapolis today. I remember my aunt's letter to my father and to our family during Soviet era. Also small gifts from United States that brought joy to the children. I still remember father's first visit to United States to see his sister in 1981. Back then it was very extraordinary and even unthinkable. Traveling across the ocean to the great America, where Estonian ties and roots were still highly valued. I am very proud that my cousin, Professor Einhaas, and his wife studied here in Bloomington and worked here at Indiana University in Indianapolis, teaching many students, making science and holding a close relation with Estonia. This is one of the reasons why I am especially happy to stand in front of you all today. When I first visited Indianapolis in the summer 1994, I learned a lot about your state and I understand the true meaning of Indy 500 cars, Indiana University basketball, Indiana Blazers, and of course, how could you say something about Indiana basketball without Reggie Miller? I remember this trip and everything that my cousin Ian told and showed me very well. I apologize for the maybe a little bit too personal in the introduction, but once more, these links are very important to Estonians. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here at Indiana University in Bloomington, like I said, and give you a brief lecture on Estonia. I will cover four main topics in my speech. First, Estonian history and current role in the world. The second, Estonia. The third, Estonian Presidency of the Council of the European Union. And the fourth, the 100th anniversary of the Declaration of Estonians' Independence. First, Estonian history and current role in the world. I would like to start with a look back on the 1st of September 1955. On that day, the front page of the Estonian American newspaper Vaba Eesti Sõna, its free Estonian world, published the words of the 34th US President Eisenhower, spoken at the annual convention of the American Bar Association. He said, "We must be firm but friendly. We must be tolerant but not complacent. We must be quick to understand another's viewpoint, honestly assumed. But we must never agree in justice for the weak, for the unfortunate, for the underprivileged, well knowing that if we accept destruction of the principle of justice for all, we can no longer claim justice for ourselves as a matter of right." End of quote. These lines describing the situation in Europe could be published today, 62 years on, in any newspaper. The march of time has not changed the importance of these words. During the long years of foreign occupation, the belief in a future freedom was vital for us in Estonia. We needed to feel the support of those on the other side of the Iron Curtain, and we were grateful of each and every word and deed demanding justice. We knew that as long as were some of our people and friends across the world, the injustice suffered by Estonia, and its fate would not be forgotten or covered up by time. We shall remain ever grateful for this support. The same Estonia for which President Eisenhower claimed justice in his speech celebrated a week ago the 26th anniversary of the restoration of its independence during the collapse of Soviet regime in August 1991. The same Estonia will celebrate next year the essential of the Declaration of Independence of February 24, 1918, which led to creation of the Republic of Estonia. Now it is our time to be firm and claim justice for the weak and for the underprivileged. We have put the past firmly behind us and are aspiring towards an Estonia with an outside role in the world when compared to our tiny size. Lennart Meri, the first Estonian president since the restoration of our independence, summarized our main foreign policy goal, and it was very short and simple. The sentence was "never again alone." It means closeness with countries whose values and vision of the world we share, those we can count and who can count on us. Establishing and maintaining such relationships requires intensive and continuous work through diplomatic, cultural, economic, and personal relations. As we know, there can never be too many friends. In 2004, Estonia joined the European Union and NATO and became a part of the two largest guarantees of freedom, peace, stability, and growth in the world. These organizations spawned out of the ashes of a brutal world war have since then maintained peace for millions. The European Union and NATO are bigger than some of their parts. Our history is one of the reasons why we put a strong emphasis on security. Common security is the ultimate goal of any international treaty, and this is why we are actively contributing to NATO, the military alliance the world has ever seen. Estonia is not just a member of NATO. My nation is one of the few NATO members nations that not only contributes actively to NATO missions and operations, but also contributes more than 2% of our GDP on defence. In NATO, we have also been one of the champions of cyber security and taking our cyber defence to a new level. Also, we are deeply convinced that strong transatlantic relations are the greatest guarantee of European security. We appreciate highly the role the United States plays in the security of Europe and also in my region, the Baltic region. Also, we are faced with an increasingly diverse, unpredictable and demanding security environment, which puts a strain especially on the leadership, focus, resources and commitment of the United States. However, I do that the transatlantic relationship with a strong US military presence in Europe will continue. Estonia will continue to stand with and support the United States in dealing with these complex security challenges. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Estonia. Estonia is not only an active member of the European Union and NATO, but we have taken a leading role in public administration digitalization. We save annually 2% of GDP because of digital solutions. My colleagues, they said quite oftenly that these digital things are also very environmental friendly things. We are keeping different e-services what we have in Estonia and this digital society. We keep more than 300 meters amount of paper per month, and it means about almost 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet or 300 meters, it means one Eiffel Tower. It means that we keep one Eiffel Tower every month, 12 Eiffel Towers per year. In everyday life, I could say that 99.8% of the bank transfers are made electronically. 95% of income tax declaration are submitted online. And e-health and e-school solutions as well e-residency contribute to our international standing. Summarized in the World Development Report 2016 as follows: Estonia is one of a handful of countries closest to becoming a digital society. We have committed ourselves to becoming a hassle-free country. What it means? This means choosing to go digital not only in an attempt to cut costs in public administration, but also for the convenience of the residents. So, when a user interacts with the government, we try to keep it smooth, seamless and efficient, so that process take up a very little part of their time, if any. In Estonia, there have never been enough people, money or other national resources. So the need to be attentive has always been there. In the beginning of the 1990s, there was a clear need to completely redesign a way of our life. We chose to go digital because it clearly was the most reasonable choice. Meaning a country of 1.3 million people is actually quite difficult. And by managing, I mean having the entire social, educational, cultural and military establishment in place, with the taxpayers' pool being about half of the population. With this in mind, we had to be covered. At the same time, the personal computers was getting public transaction and was being implemented anywhere. So it was the most obvious choice. Estonia will need to be digital because it is efficient. The first stone in this house was to give each citizen's unique ID numbers. The difference between our ID number and other governments' numeration systems, such as the social security number here, is that this is public. We have some good practice to share. With these ideas in mind, take for example our tax authority, where you can declare our taxes in an average time of 3 minutes. Some have made them in 18 seconds. These are two main reasons why we can do this. First, each citizen has a digital identification card. This is the key card to our digital infrastructure. It allows the user to have a government-accepted digital signature. And the second reason is the backbone of our data-driven society, the X-road, which connects all the different databases in secure and private manner. These tools have helped us to create a foundation for having a shot of having a seamless government for its users and saving about 820 years worth of working time last year. The X-road also can work across the borders, as currently we are building a trust federation between Estonia and our neighbour Finland. This enables us to exchange information between different government institutions from both sides of the Gulf of Finland and cuts a lot of red tape for the Estonians and Finns who are constantly doing business together. As the digital economy has grown worldwide, the expectation of users have radically changed. In order to live up to the end user expectations, we need to change the conditions in the way public sector services are being offered. The answer lies in good quality design. Design being a bridge between creativity and innovation, make complex information simple and human-friendly. Estonia is currently starting to redesign its e-services completely. The idea is to have a set of productive services based on live events. This means, as a small example, whenever there is a child born in Estonia, automatically the ID number for this new citizen is generated. Generating a new ID number will trigger a cascade of processes, and in a few minutes, both of the parents will receive an email. Congratulations for the girl or boy. From now on that particular day, in a month you will receive this much money from the government. And don't worry about the kindergarten. All has been taken care of. This is a simplified example that illustrates the concept of an invisible services. The simple principle is, if you are entitled to get some sort of benefit, then you get in without ever applying for it. And it's like that throughout your life. Whether you go to school, lose your job, get in accident, and so on. Also, similar business events are being made automatically. From next year, you'll never have to declare anything, because everything needed for the tax declaration is done automatically. Being good at digital governments has very little to do with technology and everything to do with the mindset. The technology that Estonia is based upon is old school stuff. A system working perfectly without incident for last 15 years now. The mindset means that we have to be open to new ideas. We need to constantly ready to discover the uncharted territories, trying to reinvent our worldwide and the tools we use to craft the everyday reality of our citizens. Estonia wants to be a pathfinder, and with our small scale and open mind attitude, we are the perfect laboratory for testing out new ideas. These current and future experiments are considered our contribution to the global discussion. Digitalization is a two-edged sword, for there are a lot of possible negative scenarios as well as positive ones. But we in Estonia have decided to focus on providing a positive example. The same goes for our businesses. Our success stories range from applications like mentioned before Skype and TransferWise to companies challenging more traditional industries like Cleveron and Starship, technologies as well as Defendec, for example. Estonian companies specializing in information and communication technology and cybersecurity cooperate actively with United States counterparts to develop global product adding value and jobs to both. This is why I am accompanied by an Estonian business delegation, and we will have several meetings with American entrepreneurs in Indianapolis, San Francisco, or Los Angeles. However, this requires a very strong emphasis on cybersecurity. Like I already mentioned, we have been strong in cybersecurity issues in NATO and the European Union. It is important to share information, invest into cyber education, training and exercises. We have invested a lot of time and also finance in building up necessary competences. We are proud that now no Estonian computer or system will victim the WannaCry ransomware attack because we were prepared. Honorable audience, I'm sure you are well aware that America always had a huge role in setting up and supporting the architecture of the post-war Europe. I want to thank you, and it has been a huge success and very historical achievement. It is neither a big secret that Europe has always looked towards USA for inspiration, for its democratic institutions, its leadership in the world and its technological superiority. The fundamental idea of Europe is to still avoid war at all costs, as peace, democracy, as rule of law are always the most important values. In this remaining half of this year, Estonia is holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union, and it will be the next chapter about my speech, Estonian presidency of the Council of the European Union. The European Union is a political and economic union of 28 member states. It has an estimated population of over 510 million. The presidency is reasonably for the functioning of the Council of the European Union, the upper house, the EU legislator. It rotates among the member states every 6 months. Estonia now holds the EU presidency for the first time. This is a top priority for me and also my government, and we take this role with a strong sense of responsibility, but also with great enthusiasm and hope. By holding the presidency, Estonia's main role is to be a leader to help find middle ground among various positions and needs among the EU member states, creating European unity, a journey that started some 60 years ago, continues to be ambitious and forward-looking idea. This is precisely in the situation where last year's referendum of the United Kingdom. European Union membership a year ago leads us soon to a union with 27 member states. Of course, we are sad to see Britain leave, but this does not mean that the EU will fall apart, or even that another country will leave. This is highly unlikely. For the EU presidency, it is a challenging time. The overarching aim of the European presidency is to ensure that the EU remains united and decisive. Therefore, the slogan of the presidency is unity through balance. Our priorities are for Europe to make progress in terms of being first open and innovative Europe. The second one is safe and secure. The third is digital one, and the fourth is inclusive and sustainable. We wish to have a decisive approach during our presidency and look at our common future together. Our most important goal over the next 6 months and beyond is to make Europe stronger, more united. Also moving forward with digitalization and the free movement of data is at the top of our agenda. The first month of the EU presidency brought thousands of experts to Estonia to discuss Europe's future. During the meetings held in Estonia and elsewhere in Europe, agreements were reached on various subjects ranging from the actions necessary to solve the migration crisis to the adoption of the joint declaration on developing super-fast 5G internet connections. At the end of September, the EU member countries, head of the states and governments will gather in Tallinn, our capital, to launch high-level discussions further future plans for digital innovation with the aim of Europe to stay ahead in the technological and be a digital leader in the world in the years to come. I am very happy and also proud that all the leaders, like I said, they are coming to Tallinn in the end of September. Ms. Merkel, President Macron, and Prime Minister Theresa May, and all other European leaders. They are in Estonia in Tallinn. Estonia contributes to the strengthening of transatlantic ties, and we will continue close relations and cooperation with the United States in all sectors, including the international fight against terrorism and cyber threats. We will also committed to advancing the European trade agenda and want to encourage US leadership and initiative on the multilateral trade agenda. Continuation of the US contribution and commitment in the World Trade Organization is very important. The EU and the United States enjoy the most integrated economic relationship in the world. It is in our interest to continue and strengthen this cooperation. EU trade with the United States accounts for $650 billion annual. Together, the EU and United States account for 40% of the world's GDP, over half of foreign direct investment, and almost one-third of world trade exchange. We are confident that when our presidency is completed, Europe will have taken new steps forward in all those fields. EU relations with Russia is another widely discussed topic. It is quite often on the table in my meetings with different state leaders, and also they are asking about, by the journalists, the same questions. Russia is our neighbor, and naturally we would wish to have good relations based at the same values and principles. Unfortunately, Russia has shown over the years by attacking independent states such as Georgia or Ukraine that it does not follow the principles of international law, no respect to norms and principles that it committed itself to in the early post-Soviet era. Therefore, dialogue with Russia is only possible in limited areas with clear understanding of our interests and values. We be in the EU or in the United States should convey a common message when we engage in bilateral contacts with Russia. The second part, or the next part, is the 100th anniversary of Estonia. Our free country will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence in February next year. This is one of the most important and greatest milestones in our country's history. We create meaning for Estonians and friends of Estonian all around the world. The centennial is a celebration for everyone, and the perfect opportunity for us to join our efforts toward building a better future together. The plans for a series of celebrations lasting for 3 years actually being to be implemented already this spring. Estonia's statehood emerged as a result of the efforts of many significant events merit commemoration. For this reason, the most important jubilee in the history of our nation will be celebrated over a longer period of time. The program of celebration began in April 2017, marking the anniversary of the populated by Estonians in the northern Baltic region. The highlight will be on February 24th, 2018, when we celebrate the official 100th anniversary of the Republic of Estonia and its Declaration of Independence. The celebration will be continued through 2019 to commemorate the most important and decisive battles in the War of Independence. The Estonia 100 festivities will, for the most part, be shaped by the people of Estonia themselves, as this is everyone's celebration. We would like the anniversary celebration to reach each village and every person in our land. Many events will be also held outside of Estonia, in the places that are home to the people who love and that were important to us. I am very happy that the festivities have also reached the United States. It is a great privilege and honor to open the West Coast Estonian Days, the major gathering of American Estonians in Los Angeles on this Thursday. While the Estonian 100 Jubilee period is based on the milestone of the Estonian statehood, the Century Programme is primarily about the future. The Century Programme will engage almost every area of life and give Estonian communities around the world a chance to look back at our past, highlight the present day and to set new goals for tomorrow. To be mindful and respectful of the legacy of our hand and innovative and self-confident to the other. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the focus of the Estonian 100 celebration is on children and youth, as we are building the country for them and their future. The organizing committee is making sure that there will be plenty of events for children and youth, but also the initiatives with a long-term impact and plan taking into account the needs and wishes of young people. The aim of the Estonian 100 and Estonia EU Presidency International Programme is to combine efforts to raise Estonian profile globally. The programme will provide support to more than 150 cultural, educational, research and technological events in 2017 and 2018. One of the greatest events will be World Clean-up Day on September 15, 2018, which will be a gift from Estonians to the world. All Estonians abroad and friends of Estonians throughout the world are also invited to take part in the Estonian 100 program. Dear Professor, students, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you once more this honorable opportunity to meet here in Bloomington. Thank you, and I'm also happy to answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Before Professor Ron comes to moderate the questions, I just want to thank two people, Emily Stir and Chuck Carney, for organizing this. Please join me in thanking them very much. Professor Ron, over to you, and thank you again, Mr. Prime Minister.
I've been asked to moderate the discussion, and I'd like to take the opportunity to begin the conversation. If you look at the United Nations Human Development Index, Estonia has had a meteoric rise on that. In 2004, Estonia was 40th in the highest level of human development. Last year, 2016, Estonia was 30th out of 188 countries, and third among post-communist countries, just behind Slovenia and the Czech Republic. I wonder if you could give us your evaluation of how this success has been possible.
Thank you for the question. Like I mentioned during my speech, what is the most important for Estonia last 26 years? I mean, the period after Soviet occupation is to integrate very strongly different international organizations. That is one of, I could say that is one of very concrete goal or way to go. What I mean, of course, I mean the EU, I mean the NATO, I mean also the same currency what we are using, or majority of the EU states are using in European Union. The second thing is, like I mentioned, is that Estonia, we must choose our way to go. And I could say that this way was and still is very right. It's this kind of digitalization, it's different e-services, e-solutions. Of course, all this democracy, all this international law and these kind of aspects, if you are in the EU or in the NATO, I think it isn't quite hard to imagine that you don't follow this kind of rules. And maybe one thing more. Our bilateral relations between different states, they are very, very strong. Like I mentioned before, that I am very appreciative about the relations between Estonia and the United States. But actually, one of our closest neighbors, the north part of Europe, is Finland. And between Finland and Estonia, we have sea, Baltic Sea, and it is about 80 kilometers. And every day between the capitals, Helsinki and Tallinn, we have, I could say, more than 20 connections, the ferry connections. The one connection, it takes about 2 hours. What I would like to describe this information or example that all these Scandinavian countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, they are very close to our society. Estonia is open economy. It means that our influence for our economy is quite strongly what happened in Europe, in Scandinavian countries, and also in the worldwide.
Thank you. Professor Choksi has a question.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, in the speech you alluded to the US-led post-World War order. That World War order is now being questioned by some in Washington. What would you say on that issue?
Could you a little bit describe more?
Okay. You talked about the post-World War order, and you alluded to its value. The engagement of the US in leading that post-World order is now under question in some circles in Washington. And I would be curious as to whether you would elaborate a little more on your words from your speech.
Okay, thank you for the question. Like I said, that these transatlantic ties, I think we all understand that United States is this kind of cornerstone. And it is so. It is very, very, very simple. It is very important that we have this kind of strong ties inside the NATO. When I was with all the NATO country leaders in Brussels, when we opened NATO headquarters, and I remember that a lot of journalists are asking the question why the President Trump, he didn't say about the Article 5. But he said very concrete that United States is behind the NATO. And now, today, we know that after, I think it was the press conference between Romanian and United States President, that he mentioned also that the Article 5 is very important. In our region, in Estonia, in our region it means the Baltic region, I mean Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, plus Poland. Today, under the NATO umbrella, we have this enhanced forward presence. What it means that a lot of NATO troops are today these 4 countries. It is very important for us. For example, 2 weeks ago, when I met your Vice President Mike Pence in Tallinn, in our capital, and the next day he made his speech in front of the troops from Estonia, from United States, from United Kingdom and from France. I think maybe that is the most strongest message, that these countries who are in the NATO or who are in inside the European Union, we all would like to live in peace. And I believe today very strongly that this way is, how to say, is continue. And even more, these ties are going much more stronger and stronger every year. I think when we are discussing this kind of questions 2 years ago maybe, that in the Baltic states we could see the troops with different NATO states, then I think the majority of these people, they could say that it's quite a nice idea, but never realistic. Today it's realistic.
Please, the floor is open. Yes.
What advice would you give to aspiring public servants and government officials about acting on the international stage? What advice would you give to aspiring government officials and public servants about acting on the international stage?
International stage, you mean?
International stage.
International diplomat.
Rahvusvahelisel lava.
I think that all these countries, what I mentioned before, the last question, what are inside the two main union, I could say. And a lot of these countries are the same in NATO and in EU. I think we all understand international rules or international law. I think the quite simple answer or quite concrete and short answer is that every independent country, they must live in their territory independent. What happened in 2008 in Georgia and some years later in Ukraine, it shows that we have still in our world these kind of countries who are saying that this kind of international law doesn't mean anything. And that is the reason. That is the main reason what I also mentioned, that Russia is our neighbor. A lot of Estonian companies, businesses, who would like to make the good cooperation with them. But today we have sanctions. Both sides, I mean from European Union side and also here from United States side. And if we are acting together, then the influence is very strong. Thank you.
Further questions? Yes.
What is your situation with immigration?
One of my reasons, when I said that I was two weeks ago in Turkey and I met the President Erdogan and also the Prime Minister. One reason, of course, is always this kind of bilateral relations between two countries. But the other reason was that Estonia is today the presidency in EU. And EU and Turkey, for example, if we are talking the migration and the refugees, we have very strong and working agreement between Turkey and European Union. I think there isn't only one answer how to solve these questions. In my opinion, one of the most important things is the solidarity. The second thing, what we are doing today inside the EU to help this kind of different African states. It's the African Trust Fund. And the third thing, of course, what I just mentioned is the agreement between Turkey and EU. I could say that during our presidency, I mentioned our priorities. Also, I mentioned the Brexit. But actually, in my opinion, this kind of the most important issue or topic on the table is today actually migration and the refugees crisis. That is very. I could say that every European Council we discussed about how to solve the migration things. These are very, very important, and I mentioned the solidarity. For example, Estonia, we are also open for the refugees to take, for example, from Greece or from Turkey, and it must be all these 28 countries the same way. But it is the most important topic today on the table.
Finland has a lot of them, and they've been very picky. And I've been gone in the United States for 55 years, and the country has changed. It was all blondes and Finns, and it's no more. But I think it's good for the country.
Okay, let's move ahead. Young man with a microphone.
While I was in Tallinn earlier this year, several people had stated that they lost confidence in the current generation of politicians. How do you plan on reaching out to your citizens?
Reaching out?
Yes, more communicating.
You mean inside Estonia?
Yes.
Different nationalities?
No, your own people, your population.
To communicate them, not to be in office as much as they need, but to be, how to say, in front of different audience and different meetings as much as possible. I could say that I think in Estonia it isn't very hard to ask, for example, I don't know, kindergarten or for the school or some other companies to meet with the Prime Minister or the President. It's quite easy to send, I don't know, to send the message through the Facebook, and then they could answer it. And how to say, it isn't so that the Prime Minister doesn't go, for example, the shop or going to the kindergarten to take, for example, my son. It's quite a small society, and it isn't. I could say that it isn't very big issue to communicate with different. First of all, parliament members, and of course the member of government as well.
We have a question along the wall. Perhaps someone in the back there? Yes? Can you stand?
Hi, one question I had for you, and thank you for taking your time to talk with us. Throughout Eastern Europe, energy independence is becoming a very big issue, with increasing sanctions on Russia and movement towards clean and renewable energy like solar, wind, and hydroelectricity. For you, how do you perceive the energy dependence of Estonia on its neighbors going forward? And how do you plan, or how does your government plan to address being able to be energy independent and produce renewable energy? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think it shows that you know our current situation very well. If you are asking this very concrete question, and this topic is on the table, and what is our aim? Our aim is to desynchronize. What the situation today? Situation today that all these three Baltic countries, we are synchronized very strongly with Russian Federation since during our occupation, or since the beginning of the occupation. What is our three countries' aim? It's to desynchronize Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. The aim is to do it 2025 to 2030. It's quite big investment. It means it takes more than 10 years. The question is today we will desynchronize our three Baltic states through the Poland to the Central Europe or to the Nordic countries. That is, I could say the most important reason is the security issue or the security question. It is today on the table, and not only on the table, but we are working for that. All these three governments. About renewable energy, I could say that these alternatives, mainly the wind and solar, they are quite popular, and a lot of investment and investors are interested in Estonia because Estonia is our sea border is quite a lot of kilometers, and there are a lot of wind. Not so many sunshine days, but also the solar energy is quite popular. I know that, for example, in our capital, some quite big apartment houses, not individual, they are also, but apartment houses, they are using these solar panels.
I'm told we have time for one more question. Please should be waiting over there, please.
Thank you. I spent 5 weeks in Estonia this summer, and you talked a lot about digital technology, and very often we think of technological advances and modernization coming at the cost of traditional culture. But I saw that Estonia seems to value traditional culture very highly. So I have two questions. One is just, how do you balance the needs of modernization and of traditional culture in Estonia on a governmental level? And also, as you are modernizing and trying to improve your economy over time, how do you make sure that those benefits reach the rural areas like the countryside and also the islands?
Thank you for the questions. If you were more than 5 weeks in Estonia, then you know our state quite well. First of all, we have two ministers in government: Minister of Cultural Affairs and Minister of Infotechnological Affairs. It means the balance between these two topics. But I couldn't say that this kind of e-solutions or different digital things, they could, they are in front of these cultural aspects or cultural policy. I could say that these routes, especially out of the capital, these ties, they are very, very strong. For example, in Estonia, we are very proud that we have more than 2,000 small and little bit bigger islands. For example, these routes, what comes from our islands and cultural, especially in music and different areas, they are very, very strong. What it means the support, the financial support, but also these communities, I could say they are also very active. Really, they are very active. And we have Sing and Dance Festival every 4 years. It is maybe one of the best example how we keep our cultural ties and cultural roots in everyday life. Once more, I am very appreciated to be here. It is a big honor for me, and I wish you all the best. Thank you once more.